She heard her childhood lullaby on violin. The street musician froze as she whispered, "Dad." The memory begins in fragments, like scattered notes from a half-remembered song. A small apartment bathed in golden evening light, where the scent of jasmine tea mingles with the warm wood polish of a violin case. 7-year-old Anna sits cross-legged on a worn Persian rug, her dark eyes wide with wonder, as her father Samuel draws his bow across the strings with the precision of a master craftsman. The melody that flows from his instrument isn't just music. It's liquid comfort, a lullaby born from his soul and crafted specifically for her restless nights. The notes dance around the room like invisible butterflies, each one carrying the weight of unconditional love. Samuel's fingers move with practiced grace, his eyes closed in concentration, completely lost in the intimate conversation between bow and string. This isn't a performance, it's a prayer, a father's whispered promise that no matter how dark the world becomes, there will always be this moment, this song, this unbreakable bond between them. Anna's mother, Eleanor, watches from the kitchen doorway, her gentle smile reflecting the contentment that fills their modest home. She wipes flour-dusted hands on her apron, the aroma of fresh bread adding another layer to this tapestry of domestic bliss. The apartment may be small, the furniture may be second-hand, but love saturates every corner like sunlight streaming through gauze curtains. Samuel's violin case sits open beside him, lined with faded purple velvet that has witnessed countless performances in concert halls across the city. Inside, alongside Rosine and spare strings, lies a faded photograph of him accepting an award from the city's Philharmonic Society, a reminder of the brilliant career that pays their bills, but pales in comparison to these intimate evening concerts for an audience of one. The lullaby reaches its crescendo, a bittersweet melody that seems to acknowledge both the beauty and fragility of this moment. Anna's eyelids grow heavy, but she fights sleep, unwilling to let this magical evening end. Samuel notices her struggle and begins to slow the tempo, each note becoming more deliberate, more weighted with tenderness. He opens his eyes to find hers watching him with the kind of trust that only exists between a child and the parent who represents their entire world. The final note hangs in the air like a benediction, and as it fades, Samuel carefully places his violin in its case, the ritual as sacred as the music itself. He scoops Anna into his arms, her small body fitting perfectly against his chest as he carries her to bed, humming the lullaby's melody in a voice roughened by years of performance, but softened by paternal love. This is happiness in its purest form, distilled to its essence and bottled in memory. But memories, like melodies, can be broken by the harsh discord of reality. The phone call comes on a Tuesday morning in October, shattering their perfect world like a discordant note in a symphony. Elena collapses in the hospital corridor, her heart giving out from the stress of a diagnosis that came too late, leaving Samuel to catch her as she falls, leaving Anna to watch her universe implode from the sterile hallway of the children's ward. The funeral is a blur of black clothes and whispered condolences, but what Anna remembers most is the silence, the terrible, oppressive silence where her mother's laughter used to live, where her father's lullabies used to dance. Samuel tries to hold their fractured world together with trembling hands. He still plays his violin, but now the music sounds hollow, mechanical, stripped of the joy that once made it transcendent. The apartment becomes a museum of grief, with Elena's coffee cup still sitting on the kitchen counter, her favorite book still folded open to page 47, her perfume still lingering on the pillowcases that Samuel can't bring himself to wash. Anna, now 14 and sharp with the kind of pain that ages children too quickly, watches her father disappear piece by piece, like a photograph left too long in sunlight. He still goes through the motions of parenthood, packing her lunch, driving her to school, asking about homework, but his eyes have gone distant, focused on some internal horizon that she cannot reach. The breaking point comes on a rainy Thursday evening. Samuel sits in his usual chair, violin resting across his knees, but his hands remain motionless. Anna finds him there, staring at nothing, and for the first time in months, she asks him to play their lullaby. The request seems to physically wound him. His face contorts with pain so raw that Anna takes a step backward. He tries to lift the bow, his hand shaking with the effort, but the instrument feels foreign in his grasp, like trying to speak a language he's forgotten. The bow touches the strings, producing a sound so broken, so discordant, that it seems to tear something fundamental in the fabric of their home. Samuel's composure finally cracks, and he throws the violin across the room, where it strikes the wall with a sickening crash, strings snapping like broken promises. The aftermath is worse than the explosion. Samuel sits with his head in his hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs, while Anna stares at the shattered instrument, understanding for the first time that some things, once broken, can never be fully repaired. She wants to comfort him, to bridge the chasm that grief has carved between them, but she's still a child herself, drowning in her own sorrow and confusion. The next morning, she wakes to find a note on the kitchen table, written in her father's careful handwriting. "I'm not strong enough to be the father you deserve. Forgive me." The apartment echoes with emptiness, and Anna realizes that she has now lost both parents to death, one to the grave, one to his inability to bear the weight of living. The foster system swallows her whole, a bureaucratic machine that processes grief with forms and file folders. Anna learns to build walls around her heart, constructing elaborate defenses against the possibility of ever being abandoned again. She channels her pain into ambition, her rage into academic excellence, transforming herself from a broken girl into a weapon of success. If you don't let anyone close, they can't leave you. If you don't need anyone, you can't be disappointed. If you don't love anyone, you can't be destroyed by loss. These become her commandments, the gospel according to survival. And speaking of survival and the incredible power of human resilience, if you're moved by stories of families torn apart and the long journey toward healing, you'll want to subscribe to Love Reunion Stories. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because we bring you the most powerful true stories of people finding their way back to each other against impossible odds. Every week, we share tales that will restore your faith in the possibility of second chances and the enduring strength of family bonds, even when they seem irreparably broken. Years pass like pages turning in a book Anna refuses to read. She excels in high school, earns a full scholarship to law school, and builds a career that becomes the envy of her peers. By 32, she is a senior partner at one of the city's most prestigious firms, specializing in corporate litigation with a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and utterly uncompromising. Her corner office on the 42nd floor offers a panoramic view of the city, but Anna rarely looks out the windows. She prefers the comfort of contracts and depositions, the clean lines of legal arguments where emotion has no place, and victory is measured in billable hours and settlement figures. Her apartment reflects her professional success: minimalist furniture in shades of grey and white, original artwork that was selected by a decorator, a kitchen that sees more takeout containers than home-cooked meals. The only music comes from a high-end sound system that plays classical pieces at low volume, background noise that fills the silence without demanding emotional engagement. Anna has trained herself not to recognize the pieces, not to let melody penetrate the armor she's spent decades forging. Music belongs to the past, to a life she's locked away in the deepest vault of her memory. Her colleagues respect her, her clients fear her, and her few acquaintances admire her from a safe distance. She dates occasionally, carefully structured encounters with other professionals who understand that intimacy is a liability and attachment is a weakness. These relationships never progress beyond the superficial, never threaten the carefully maintained equilibrium of her controlled existence. Anna tells herself this is what she wants: success without vulnerability, achievement without risk, a life where she calls all the shots and no one can hurt her by leaving. But success without connection is just elaborate loneliness, and even the most fortified heart cannot completely silence the echo of what it once knew. Late at night, when exhaustion finally forces her to rest, Anna sometimes finds herself humming fragments of melody that she cannot quite place, notes that seem to rise from some buried part of her consciousness, like bubbles from the depths of a dark lake. She always catches herself before the melody becomes recognizable, always turns on a podcast or reaches for work documents to drown out the dangerous music that threatens to unlock doors she's spent her adult life sealing shut. The evening that changes everything begins like any other. Anna works late. the office building growing quiet around her as colleagues head home to families and lives that exist beyond conference rooms and legal briefs. She's reviewing a complex merger agreement, the pages blurring together in the blue glow of her computer screen, when her assistant knocks on the door to remind her that the security guards will be locking up soon. Hannah checks her watch. 10:30 p.m., another 14-hour day in a career built on such days. She packs her briefcase with mechanical efficiency, the ritual as automatic as breathing. The subway platform is nearly empty at this hour, populated only by the late shift workers and night owls who navigate the city's underground arteries with practiced anonymity. Anna stands in her usual spot, checking emails on her phone while waiting for the train that will carry her back to her sterile apartment and another night of restless, dreamless sleep. The platform smells of damp concrete and metal, punctuated by the distant rumble of approaching trains and the echo of footsteps on tile. She's scrolled through dozens of messages, her thumb moving with automatic precision, when a sound penetrates her electronic cocoon, a single, pure note that seems to slice through the urban cacophony like a blade through silk. Anna's thumb freezes on her phone screen. The note hangs in the air, followed by another, then another, building into a melody that makes her blood turn to ice water in her veins. It's impossible. It can't be. But her body recognizes the song before her mind can form the words to deny it. Every cell in her being responding to a musical phrase that was written into her DNA through countless evenings of paternal love. The lullaby. Their lullaby. The secret song that belonged only to a father and daughter in a world that no longer exists. Her phone slips from nerveless fingers, clattering onto the concrete platform. But Anna doesn't notice. She's frozen in place, every defense she's built over 18 years crumbling like a dam under impossible pressure. The melody continues, played with a skill and sensitivity that she recognizes even through the haze of shock and disbelief. Someone is playing their song, the private anthem of a broken family, and playing it with the same nuanced understanding that once lulled a frightened child to sleep. Anna's feet begin to move without conscious direction, drawn by the music like a sleepwalker following a dream. Each step feels like walking through quicksand, time stretching and distorting around her as the melody grows stronger, more distinct. She passes other commuters who seem oblivious to the soundtrack of her personal apocalypse, people checking their phones and reading newspapers while her entire world reshapes itself around 30 seconds of remembered music. The sound is coming from the far end of the platform, near the stairwell where late-night musicians sometimes perform for the sparse crowds and handful of coins that represent the difference between sleeping indoors and sleeping rough. Before we continue with this earth-shattering moment of recognition, I want you to pause and think about the power of music to transport us across time and space, to unlock memories we thought were buried forever. If this story is hitting you in the chest, if you're feeling the weight of Anna's journey, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments what song takes you back to your childhood. Your engagement helps us share these powerful stories with more people who need to hear them. Anna rounds the corner of a support pillar and stops breathing. There, sitting on a folding chair with his back against the tiled wall, is a man she hasn't seen in 18 years, but would recognize in any crowd, in any condition, in any lifetime. Samuel Adler, her father, aged and weathered but unmistakably him, draws his bow across the strings of a battered violin with the same precise, loving technique that once defined her entire world. His hair is now completely grey, his face lined with years of living rough and sleeping hard, his clothes worn and patched but clean, but his hands are exactly as she remembers them, moving with the fluid grace of a true musician, coaxing beauty from an instrument that has clearly seen better days. He's playing their lullaby, note for perfect note, with his eyes closed and his head tilted slightly to the left in the way she remembers from 1,000 childhood evenings. The violin case lies open at his feet, containing a few crumpled bills and some loose change, but Anna knows instinctively that he's not playing for money. He's playing for the same reason he always played, because the music lives inside him and demands to be released, because melody is the only language that can express what words cannot capture. Anna stands frozen in the shadows, her successful adult life feeling suddenly like an elaborate costume that no longer fits. She's 32 years old, wearing a designer suit that costs more than most people make in a month, carrying a briefcase full of contracts worth millions of dollars, but in this moment, She's 7 years old again, watching her father create magic from horsehair and wood. The years collapse like a house of cards, and she's simultaneously the abandoned teenager who learned to hate him and the little girl who loved him more than life itself. The lullaby reaches its familiar crescendo, the same bittersweet climax that used to signal bedtime and safety and the promise of tomorrow's love. But now the melody carries different harmonies, loneliness and regret, and the weight of choices that can never be unmade. Samuel's face, even in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the subway platform, shows the kind of pain that has been carved deep by time and circumstance. This isn't the successful concert violinist of her memories, but it's unmistakably her father, playing their song in a place where only strangers and echoes bear witness. Anna wants to run. Every instinct screams at her to turn around, climb the stairs, catch a different train, pretend this moment never happened. She's built her entire adult life on the foundation of his absence, constructed her identity around being the daughter who survived abandonment and emerged stronger. Seeing him here, broken but still playing their music, threatens to demolish everything she's convinced herself she believes about closure and moving on. But she can't move. Her feet feel rooted to the concrete, her body betraying the careful control she's maintained for almost 2 decades. The music holds her captive, the same way it did when she was small enough to fit in his arms, when the world was simple enough to be fixed by a lullaby and a father's love. The final notes hang in the subway air, mixing with the distant rumble of trains and the hum of fluorescent lights. And then Samuel opens his eyes. Anna steps forward, her expensive heels clicking against the platform tiles with the sharp precision of a countdown timer. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps that carry her across 18 years of silence and pain and carefully maintained hatred. Samuel continues playing, unaware of her approach, lost in the music that connects him to a daughter he probably assumes has forgotten him entirely. The irony is almost unbearable. All these years, she's been running from the very thing that might have saved them both. She stops just outside the circle of his attention, close enough to see the calluses on his fingertips, the silver threads in his hair, the way his jacket has been mended with careful, invisible stitches, close enough to smell the faint scent of rosin and old wool that clings to him like a memory of better times, close enough to hear the slight tremor in his breathing as he draws the bow across the strings, a tremor that suggests age or exhaustion, or possibly both. The song comes to its gentle conclusion, the final note fading into the ambient noise of the subway system. Samuel lowers his violin and opens his eyes, preparing to pack up his instrument and move on to another station, another audience, another handful of coins that will buy him another day of survival. But something makes him pause, some change in the atmosphere around him, some shift in the energy that makes him look up, and that's when their eyes meet. For a moment that stretches like pulled taffy, neither of them moves. Anna sees recognition dawn in Samuel's face, watched by disbelief and something that might be hope or might be terror. His grip tightens on the violin's neck, knuckles whitening against the dark wood, and the bow trembles in his other hand like a seismograph recording an earthquake. Anna's mouth opens, but no sound emerges. All the words she's imagined saying to him over the years, accusations and questions and demands for explanation, evaporate like steam. She's practiced this confrontation in her mind 1,000 times, but she never imagined it happening here, in this fluorescent-lit underground space that smells of metal and human passage, with him looking so much older and more fragile than the man who left her 18 years ago. Dad. The word emerges as barely more than a whisper, carried on an exhale that contains 2 decades of pain and confusion and desperate, buried longing. It's both a question and an accusation, both a greeting and an indictment. It's the sound of a little girl who never stopped waiting for her father to come home, filtered through the voice of a woman who learned to stop believing in happy endings. Samuel's bow slips from nerveless fingers, clattering onto the concrete platform with a sound like breaking glass. The violin remains clutched in his left hand, but his entire body has gone rigid with shock. His lips move soundlessly, forming her name but unable to give it voice, as if speaking it aloud might make this impossible moment dissolve like a mirage. The platform around them seems to hold its breath. A train rumbles through the station without stopping, its windows creating a strobe effect of light and shadow that makes this reunion feel even more surreal, like a scene from a fever dream or a memory that's been distorted by time and pain. Other passengers move past them with the studied indifference of city dwellers, unaware that they're witnessing the collision of two lives that have been orbiting each other in isolation for almost 2 decades. Anna. Samuel finally manages to speak her name, and the word comes out broken, barely recognizable. His voice is rougher than she remembers, worn down by years of street living and performances in spaces that were never meant for music. But underneath the damage, she hears the same tone that once sang her to sleep, the same warmth that made her feel like the most important person in any room. You left me. The words come out flat, matter of fact, but they carry the weight of every night she spent, wondering if she was the reason he couldn't stay, every birthday and graduation and milestone that passed unmarked by his presence. You left me, and you never came back. Samuel sets his violin carefully in its case, the motion automatic despite his shaking hands. When he looks up at her again, his eyes are bright with unshed tears. I know, he says simply. I know I did. I was 14. Anna's voice grows stronger, fueled by 18 years of suppressed fury. Mum had just died and you left me alone. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Do you have any concept of what it's like to lose both parents in the space of 6 months? Yes, Samuel whispers. I do know. Because I lost her too, Anna. I lost her, and then I lost myself, and then I lost you. And I've been trying to figure out how to live with that ever since. The honesty in his voice catches Anna off guard, deflating some of her righteous anger and replacing it with something more complicated, more painful. She wants to stay furious. Anger is clean. Anger is simple. Anger doesn't require her to examine her own role in the years of silence that followed his departure. But looking at him now, seeing the way grief has carved lines in his face and bowed his shoulders, she realizes that he's been carrying his own load of pain all these years. I looked for you, she says, and even she's not sure if it's true. After I aged out of foster care, I tried to find you, but it was like you'd vanished completely. I wanted to vanish, Samuel admits. I was convinced that you were better off without me, that I'd already done enough damage just by being the kind of father who abandons his child when things get hard. I thought disappearing completely was the kindest thing I could do. Kind? The word comes out sharp enough to cut. You think abandoning me was kind? I think I was a coward, Samuel says quietly. I think I was drowning in grief and guilt, and instead of learning to swim, I just let myself sink. And I took you down with me. Anna feels something crack inside her chest, a fault line that's been under pressure for 18 years finally giving way. She spent so long being angry at him for leaving that she's never allowed herself to be angry at him for the reasons he left, never let herself acknowledge that his departure wasn't just about her, but about his own inability to cope with loss. I needed you, she whispers, and now her voice is the voice of that 14-year-old girl again, small and lost and desperate for someone to tell her that everything would be okay. I needed my dad, and you weren't there. I know. Samuel's tears are falling freely now, cutting tracks through the grime on his cheeks. I know you did, and I failed you. I failed you in the worst possible way, and there's nothing I can do to take that back. Nothing I can do to give you back those years or make up for not being there when you needed me most. They stand in the fluorescent half-light of the subway platform, father and daughter separated by less than 10 feet and more than a decade of accumulated hurt. Around them, the city continues its relentless motion, people catching trains, starting journeys, ending them. But for Anna and Samuel, time has crystallized into this one impossible moment of recognition and reckoning. Why are you here? Anna asks finally. Why are you playing that song in this place? Samuel glances down at his violin case, at the few bills and coins that represent his day's earnings. I play everywhere, he says. Different stations, different songs. But lately I've been playing that one more often. I tell myself it's because it's beautiful, because people respond to it. But the truth is, I play it because it's the only way I have left to talk to you. The admission hits Anna like a physical blow. All these years she's assumed he'd forgotten about her, moved on to some new life where she didn't exist. The possibility that he's been carrying her with him, that he's been playing their song as a form of prayer or penance, never occurred to her. I have a good life, she says, but even as the words leave her mouth, they sound hollow. I'm successful. I have a career, an apartment, everything I need. I'm glad, Samuel says, and there's genuine warmth in his voice despite everything. I'm so glad you survived what I did to you, that you thrived despite it. I survived because I had to, Anna says, because there was no one else to take care of me after you left. I know, and I'm proud of you for that, even though I have no right to be proud of anything you've accomplished. The complexity of the moment threatens to overwhelm Anna. She wants to forgive him, and she wants to punish him, and she wants to pretend this encounter never happened, and she wants to collapse into his arms like the child she once was. All of these impulses war within her, creating an emotional storm that leaves her feeling dizzy and unmoored. I don't know what to do with this, she admits finally. I don't know how to process seeing you here like this. You don't have to do anything, Samuel says gently. You don't owe me forgiveness or anger or anything else. You've already done the hardest thing. You've built a life for yourself. Whatever happens next or doesn't happen, that's your choice to make. Anna reaches into her briefcase and pulls out one of her business cards, the thick cardstock with its embossed lettering, suddenly feeling absurdly formal given the circumstances. She holds it out to him, and after a moment's hesitation, he takes it. His fingers brush against hers briefly, and the contact sends a jolt of memory through her. His hands teaching her to tie her shoes, helping her with homework, applauding at school plays. If you want to try, she says carefully. If you want to see if there's anything left to salvage between us, you can call me, but I need you to understand that I can't promise anything. I can't promise I'll be able to forgive you, or that we'll ever have anything like a normal relationship. I can only promise that if you call, I'll answer. Samuel looks down at the card, reading her name printed in elegant typeface. Anna Elizabeth Adler, senior partner. You kept my name, he observes softly. It's my name too, Anna replies. I wasn't going to let you take that away from me along with everything else. They stand in silence for another long moment, the weight of 18 years of separation and 5 minutes of tentative reconnection settling around them like dust. Anna knows that whatever happens next, this encounter has fundamentally changed something inside her. The careful walls she's built around her heart have developed cracks, and she's not sure whether that terrifies her or relieves her. I should go, she says finally, though she makes no move to leave. Yes, Samuel agrees, though he doesn't pack up his violin. You should. Will you call? Do you want me to? The question hangs between them, loaded with 18 years of hurt and hope, and the terrifying possibility of second chances. Hannah looks at her father, really looks at him beyond the surface changes that time and hardship have carved into his appearance, and sees something she'd forgotten existed. The man who once loved her enough to create a lullaby just for her, who sang her to sleep and chased away her nightmares and made her feel like the center of the universe. I don't know, she says honestly, but I think I'd like to find out. Samuel nods slowly, carefully tucking her business card into his jacket pocket. Then I'll call, he promises. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon, when I figure out what to say to the daughter I abandoned, but never stopped loving. Anna turns to leave, then pauses and looks back at him one more time. Dad, she says, the word coming easier this time. For what it's worth, the lullaby still works. It still makes me feel safe, even after all these years. Samuel's smile is watery but genuine, the first real smile she's seen from him tonight. It was always meant just for you, he says, even when I was too broken to remember that. The music remembered. Anna walks away then, her heels clicking against the platform tiles as she makes her way back to the main concourse and the train that will carry her home. But as she climbs the stairs to street level, she hears the sound of violin strings being tuned, followed by the opening notes of their lullaby played one more time for an audience of echoes and possibilities. As we reach the end of this incredible story of recognition and the first tentative steps toward healing, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment like Anna's, where the past collided with the present in a way that changed everything? What would you do if you encountered a family member who had hurt you deeply but was clearly struggling with their own pain? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story moved you, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear about the complicated nature of forgiveness and the possibility of redemption. Don't forget to subscribe to Love Reunion Stories for more powerful tales of families finding their way back to each other. Because sometimes the most broken relationships are the ones most worth fighting to repair. Thank you for joining Anna and Samuel on this journey of recognition, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, some lullabies are strong enough to bridge any gap.